So I myself had the pleasure to be the responsible consultant for Bosch since many years now. And of course, I'm pleased that we are able to talk today, Henning. And yeah, one thing is for sure, everybody knows Bosch, at least the drilling machines and the washing machines. And I know, Henning, as Greg mentioned, you work in a different area, the so-called Mobility Solutions program. And it will be exciting to see how Bosch is positioned there. And I know that you brought a few slides with you. So
yes, you're right. I'm a team member of Mobility Solutions from the process team for managing processes which are supported by business applications. So we are maintaining that application landscape and also, of course, contributing to the S/4HANA transformation. So the team is staffed from this environment here. When I click now into Bosch Mobility Solutions, here you can, for how to say, short moment, see how we organize our future business, of course, driven by digitalization and electrification. You see personalized mobility. This is based on services and apps. You see automatic mobility. So when your car decides to use the brakes without your intervention, that's how it happens also in real life nowadays. Connected mobility, software over the air is keyword. And then you have also all around the powertrain and electrification of the powertrain, what is very much in the focus currently. So, and in the way how we are dealing with this is self-explaining on the slide. So it's not only the four-wheeler business, we have different kind of vehicles in our scope here. Invented for Life stands for how Bosch wants to improve quality of life. And this is a good product, quite successful in the market. And yes, and of course, this kind of products should also conserve natural resources, as you can read out. In a nutshell, how is the setup of Bosch? What are the business sectors? So now comes the $1 million question for Johannes. Where are your drilling machines and washing machines are belonging to, Johannes?
Okay. Just a mean question to get me engaged. Yeah, but business consumer goods, I guess. That was an easy one.
Yes, consumer goods, exactly. There we have power tools, and we have also Bosch Siemens Hausgeräte for the services all around the household applications. Yes. So when you have a big hall and you have to get also communication and security technology inside, then we go to energy and building technology, and we get in addition heating products there. And when you have how to say, and hydraulics, you need hydraulics for construction machineries, then you go directly to industrial technology, or you want services for digital manufacturing. And yes, mobility solutions I have shown only before. So what we are doing there in mobility solutions is, of course, we are not dealing separately. Maybe to go back to one aspect, of course, it's not about to run SAP in this environment. So we need different solutions, different templates, because behind these different sections and within the sections, we have different business models and also process models. So we have, of course, to adjust. But what we want to do is, of course, drive as much as possible standardization to simplify, to reduce complexity, and also use opportunities and gain opportunities of automation, of course. Yes. And yes. So some facts and figures about last year. It was quite a tough year. You know, there was a breakdown of the business. So business collapse completely, not completely, but a very strong one, historical one. And fortunately, a strong recovery at the end of the year in the fourth quarter. So however, there was not a good time to earn money for Bosch in the mobility solution. So also the call for good and performing processes is, of course, coming more up. Yes. And when you see the number of locations in Bosch and also for mobility solutions, manufacturing locations, you see also the volume, and this volume is, of course, a challenge. Yes. Yes. And
definitely impressive numbers. So and therefore probably some very special challenges, right? In terms of dealing with the digitalization, right?
Yes, exactly. Of course, this is there are big numbers and also big data models behind. So this is something we have to manage and have to find good ways not to do that in a good how to say time frame also. Yes. So the procedure is right now the timeline. What is planned? The roadmap is to go ahead with 2 pilots and then to go continuous, of course, in bigger waves. And for bigger waves, we have to find the right setup also regarding training and user adoption. Yes. Okay. So one more, what we should not forget, of course, like a Bosch, when you go there, you see Sean. He explains you all the products of Bosch and stands for IoT and AIoT of Bosch, how we are driving Internet of Things and using artificial intelligence. A quite really entertaining videos what you can find there, and please go to Bosch to YouTube and you'll find good solutions there. So my home base right now is in this program. It contains the S4 transformation. Contains means there's also more insights. So it's not only about S4, it's about a new landscape. That's something quite exciting, what you don't experience regularly in a company, that you can be a part of such an exciting journey. So that's something what is to keep in mind. It's more than SAP only. Yes. We are connected also and collaborating, of course, with other S4 programs which are coming up right now. Bosch Siemens Hausgeräte, they have it already managed, some of the modules to integrate. However, we look for synergies across the different programs. This is something we do also intensively, also regarding training, of course.
So to summarize it real quickly, yeah, you're responsible for process architecture and documentation and training at Bosch, and therefore responsible for the global rollouts of SAP and other applications. And yeah, this by definition makes you the ideal person to talk to about the whole user enabling for S4HANA, right? So,
yes, thank you, Johannes. Thank you. Okay.
And you mentioned a couple of things already, which I want to circle back to. So you mentioned that you start with a pilot and then you roll it out in waves. Can you elaborate a little bit more about that? Like the specific challenges, maybe?
Yes, in terms of what it means for training itself. So we will go live with the first version of this new application environment mid of next year, and also with the first version of training environment, yes, or training content, yes. And it's a matter of fact, this will also be, because it's the first version, done here and there under time pressure, yes. I have countermanaged just to avoid that things are getting lost because of that, but important is that also the environment will grow. There will be new versions coming up, and also same will be valid for the training content. Will be a continuous improvement and enrichment of this content. That's something what we have already in mind, of course. Yes, and we want to reuse all that, of course, for that what happens later on in the waves.
Yeah, just by looking at the numbers of all the sites and locations that you have, it sure makes sense to have this rollout in waves, and rather than some sort of big bang approach. Was this always like this, or has it been different in the past?
Yes, we made in one huge project where we had in the sales environment and accounting environment moved into SAP on a horizontal layer. We made already experience there how to deal with that, so we can profit from that. Many colleagues are still now a part of this program, and we can count on that. Yes. What is quite special for us in Bosch Mobility Solution, we have really a strong cross-divisional team and network behind. So team with direct reporting lines and network with many reporting lines into the plants also, yes, worldwide, and this we built up in previous times. And this is a good starting condition, of course, for such an exercise.
Okay. Sounds really interesting, definitely. So you mentioned training a couple of times already. which you are responsible for. So the question is obvious, and to jump right into the topic. So from your point of view, how's training currently developing and being performed at Bosch, and what kind of trends do you see?
Of course, I'm connected with the colleagues from Human Source also. Yes, the training, there's change in training. Training comes to learning, and training is in the middle of a kind of transformation, and also a digital transformation in learning. Find new or shape a new environment what allows you much more training in the moment of need, and that's the same, really exactly the direction we want to go also in training in the S4 environment. Yes, so training in the moment of need means not only to focus on rollout preparation trainings, also to create also content what can be reused later on directly by the user in the moment of need. And yes, TTS, we have integrated the functionality from TTS, the quick access some years back, which you additionally extended with recording functionalities, and this we want intensively to be used. Yes. I have also taken one slide from you, what is visualizing that. Thanks for that, but it's good to tell the story with this graphical elements here. So you see on the left side training in the moment of, not in the moment of need, in the training as preparation to the rollout, and when you have a good environment what allows more services and pull for content in the training in the moment of need, then of course you can simplify, you can also lean the volume of training before going live. Yes, and yes, sometimes magic, how to say, understanding about how learning happens in organization. So to be very clear, when you put something on a PowerPoint, when you go in a room and show it to others, it can push learning, but it will never be closed. Learning is something what is finished. Something what is a process, needs iterations, needs repetitions, and that's you can manage them also after the go live. So we have to guide users much more in the application than we did in the past.
Yeah. When we talked prior to the webinar, you mentioned an example from one of your colleagues. What was that again? You shared this nice example.
Yes, of course. Corona was a challenge. There was no chance anymore to go to classroom trainings. Yes, and many programs got reworked also to align to the situation we had in terms of webinars and other digital formats. Yes, and one colleague this week, you're right, Johannes, he told me he has now reduced a one-day training to a 2 days training to a one-day webinar, concentrating on the core topics and to provide more additional details than in a design of a training in the moment of need. Yes, and that we can access this content what he didn't cover while handling, while executing in the application itself.
Yeah, and here on this slide alone, I already see a couple of new buzzwords that are all over the place by now, namely performance support and digital user adoption. So we talked a lot about training already. How do you see the connection to these new formats at Bosch?
Yes, of course. We have when we go in the S4 transformation, we have an experienced user group on board. Yes, we don't have to explain everything from scratch again. So it's more when there is not a huge difference to explain more about how things happen in the application itself. So we can jump much faster in the application. Yes, and can provide also orientation about how things are similar, how things are getting different. Yes, and this we have to consider, and that's why I say this step-by-step instructions are building the backbone for this transformation. Yes, and to cut a long story short, yes, this is supported by TTS. We have built up this environment several years back. That's a big benefit, a big asset what we have. So we are live, we have integrated in the Bosch environment. We can make use of that, and of course, everything what is available with a fingertip gets also questioned. Yes, why is this available? Is there nothing better in position and so on and so forth. So we had this also, we had also proof of concept of other tools. There was a confirmation for the S4 journey to go ahead with this environment, and there will be other challenges coming. This is clear, of course. Yes, and it is good like that because the market is quite dynamic in this environment. Yes. What I see here as advantages is quite now automation. There's a certain degree of automation in terms of creating content by recordings without screenshots and things like that. Also in the way of to filter content according the position you are in the application and get it accessible. What is quite now relevant only, yes, and this happens also in a automated process in the background. So this is topics we can count on, and if it works, that we can align with the experts in terms of expert-generated content, that they get simplifications and time savings in creating content. I guess we can create a quite successful story.
Yeah.
What is another success factor for me is how we integrate then the training environment, what we are having with the rollout activities, so the training before the rollout. So when you make familiar, of course, of the environment and that people know where to get the objects which you have trained before, then we can create a good success story.
Mm-hmm. So all of this also has an effect on the development cycles of training material, right? With your experts creating the content.
Yes, this is something the biggest challenge, how to cut the elephant into pieces. Yes, so I have several discussions in the past that this is one elephant, I cannot cut it into pieces. Yes, you can divide it into some chapters. You can take chapters into courses, you can put courses into single objects, yes, and create a story out of that. Yes, like you have also a structure in user manuals. So we can get rid of the user manuals and think about small objects and how we can combine them in a flexible way for different target groups. Yes, and this is exactly the change we have also there in learning, the change for user groups, the change also for the experts who are creating the content. Yes, and when this will be possible to combine this with a single source principle, that we can use it for different training scenarios, then we have really, how to say, we save time for experts to do also development topics and others. Yes, to take care of that.
I mean, everybody knows those eternally long documentations and those very lengthy WBTs. And at least to my experience so far, I know that S4 offers the possibilities very well for the creation of those small learning units. So that is definitely on the plus side. And you mentioned it earlier, I know you have been working, but you've been using our software since several years now. I've been there, done together with you, and you've built up the environment. So yeah, please forgive me for asking, but what role does our TTS Performance Suite play in your program exactly?
Yes, as I mentioned already, we can count on that, of course. It's live, it's integrated in the Bosch environment, in the learning environment, with success factors, with our Facebook, with Bosch Connect it's called, and also with other elements. We can integrate all the content from other environments into that one to create a one-stop shop for training. Yes, this we all can do. Yes, and to underline again, I see less importance of the platform itself. I see much more importance with this with the quick access functionality, that you have access in the application directly to the content you need at the place you need it. Yes, that this filtering happens. I guess this is really a good benefit of what we can provide. However, there's a familiarization required, familiarization time for the experts, for the users, and this is change. This is change, and this needs also change management.
Yeah, and you can allow me this side comment. From my point of view, there's always been a huge strength of Bosch. Those are the employees that you have around you. So I was pleased to also travel to India and be on site with the team, working with them with several different departments, and you really notice that you have some really highly motivated and capable people that are working there. And I'm pretty sure that helps a lot, having this sort of organization around you. And maybe you can to say a little bit more about the organization, how it's set up in the background and in the foreground, and what impact does it have on the organization?
Yes, the decision once to go for TTS PS was because it's an all-in-one solution. Yes, it provides you a back end, it provides a template structure, a workflow, reviewing functionalities. I don't want to make advertisement here, but it's a huge environment, what I want to say. You need also people who are managing this environment. Yes, with yearly releases, with connecting the interfaces, also for development interfaces like machine voice over and so on and so forth. Yeah? So this is one part of the game, and we have a team there also taking care for publishing services. This is available. This is in place. Yes. And we can extend based on needs we have with the programs and the rollout projects, of course. Yes. And on the other side, we have also support for content creation. These are not only learning experts, we have also SAP consultant in place. It's a shared service organization, huge one what they had there. By chance, it was not planned that I get to this position because of that, but by chance I the assignment also in India some years back and no colleagues from that time. So this had, of course, also to bridge the culture gaps what existing, of course. Yes, it's another cultural environment what it is. But we have things in place and we can count on that. And now we have to further develop everything. Yes, it's clear with the requirements with S4 will be different. There are new players coming also in the game, and we have for sure development needs and have to align across the programs.
Definitely. But is it like this that most of the experts are located in India, or are they located all over the world?
This is a support team. We have to run this environment here. But when I look into the content creation part, there we have an expert network, a global network in place, and this is of course not limited to one organization. Yes, this is the process work what these colleagues are doing here. So process experts in defining requirements for the IT and doing the testing also and so on and so forth. Also being available for the support later on, also for small improvement activities. So this is a huge group what I mentioned before with a core team in a line organization and many additional colleagues in a network organization attached to that.
Okay. So not only expert created content, but also I assume you also aim for when creating content later on, not only with those experts, but also with the users who are actually working with the system, right?
Yeah, okay, exactly, yes.
All right. Well, looking at the time, just maybe a couple of questions left before probably there's a couple of those in the audience, and we can hand over there. What would be interesting to know is if you can say something about the budget and the resources behind all of this. So what kind of effort is behind the planning and the implementation and maintenance and all those kind of things?
Yes, there is a rule of thumb from a software provider in Walldorf in Germany, quite known one, and this figure was for me quite impressive. There was a statement: hey, 10% of your project or resources, overall resources, you should invest for enabling of people. So yes, so this was firstly so much, yes, but when you look into that and see also there's a certain amount available to create and to manage such an environment for training. This we have already in place in Bosch. Yes, that's a big advantage. And in addition, of course, you need the inputs of the experts. Yes, and this I have shown here in this chart how to organize it. There's a risk that training comes at the end, and in fact, training comes at the end. Yes, just before go live. Yes, so. But when you think about change management, when you think about S4 as a new environment, what is also experts want to have a look into that one. How are you? What happens there? And so on and so forth. It's good to give an updated view about what is already available. And therefore, I said we have to get much closer in terms of integration to the other disciplines in this program. Yeah, so also required for close documentation. To give the triggers also when there are changes to update all the training materials. So that's why confirmed also in the organization we need to define development package that they are getting that a part of the one element, one delivery will be also to have a user documentation available in terms of a step-by-step guide. That's exactly what everybody can see then with this one, also how things are going to be performed in the system. You can use this also for expert training, the test phases and so on and so forth. So this is something we have to do it earlier and have to find lean automated solution to create this content and make it also in such an automated way available in a filtered system. Yes. There are some challenges to overcome here, but we are moving in a good direction regarding this approach. And it's a time saver for the experts also.
So what kind of challenges? Is there any roadblocks that you really want to avoid? Anything that already popped up?
It's more in the mind of the people. Yes, they are used to say training comes at the end. Yes, and say yes, come on, we have to value much more user experience in the organization. Yes, we have to. This must be part of the deliverable that you show also for users and for how things should be, how execution happens in the application for certain tasks. Yes, and in an early time and accessible by a fingertip. So this is not only a question of prioritization. Values are driving also prioritization. This is something I have to convey in my responsibility for user adoption.
Yeah.
And in addition with this, to stabilize such a process, it's a benefit later on when the updates and new releases are coming. So it's to be expected a quite higher change dynamic also from SAP side, but also from other applications in this environment. Much higher change dynamic than in the past. Updates not getting rolled in only once a year. This is by big releases. This will happen on the fly more and more. That's a strategy already in the existing environment. So and there, for me, this is something I can show here. It's important also to go new ways regarding user experience. Yes, to communicate directly to the users in the application. In the web environment, it's already normal. Microsoft has also started to highlight when there are changes and update this. And this we have to discover how to do so and find good solutions. So it's my desire that we are well prepared regarding communication to take on this aspect when we are starting to roll in waves. Yes, and find good support solutions for that. Yes. And in addition, of course, there are more and more providers coming up with measuring of user experience to see where are bottlenecks, where are delays, where things are not getting closed completely. And this is quite new for the companies. So it's a question also how will be our setup for that? How can we organize ourselves for topics like this with the appropriate priority? Yes. So this is something we have to learn. We have to learn. And automation matters. Search bots, we did first experiences, but there is more possibilities for sure in place. Also to see needs for automation with UX analysis. Yes.
How was your personal learning curve over there? Did you run some sort of pilot to get those first insights and how to move forward, or?
That's our plan, exactly, to proceed in that direction. Yes, to see what is possible. To look also in tools from the web environment, how communication could be managed, how we can trigger, how we can steer, how we can bring it on a point, how we decide about frequency of content and so on and so forth. So that's something what is our learning journey also. Yes. But the need is obvious, and it's not a very complicated thing, but you have to get something new done. That's crucial. And all that, of course, also in reflection of the change impact analysis, where are the deltas. But to take one of your questions already an answer before, please take care, pay attention about delta trainings. When you put too much attention to delta, you create documents which you don't need 3 weeks after they go live. So on target states and condense delta to the max that you can explain, but you show how things are working in the targets.
All right.
I guess it's just something also what is point of view, what is supported by TTS based on the experiences.
Well, that's already that's a really nice finishing sentence from you. And since Greg has switched on his camera, I know it's time for us to get to the end. So,
no, very good, perfect in time, exactly about 30 minutes. So thank you very much. to you, Henning and Johannes, for this very interesting questions and answers, very concrete ones, in my opinion. And now we have some time for the questions of the participants. We had a lot of very interesting questions, so I tried to choose hopefully the best ones. So one very concrete question is, how does Bosch implement performance support, or maybe which formats does Bosch use with performance support? Henning.
Okay. So we had intensive, how to say, production, web of production last years for the e-learning part itself. The environment also created by the colleagues from HR is extended now. We have also a video channel in Bosch available. Yes, what can be used. And of course, we need all the direct interaction with users. Yes, face-to-face is at Corona time difficult. You need to find ways, especially in the direct environment, to talk to people directly, to show them also directly, to guide them also in person. Yes, and yes, let me say in the office environment, of course, there due to Corona, there was a lot of done also in terms of webinars, and this would be for bigger changes, of course, the method which will be quite dominant. Yes, that's my expectation. Yes. I hope we can avoid these big manuals and go more in small learning units and combine them in packages later to make them accessible via the platform or via the quick access. That's for me the wish, the desire to get a breakthrough there and to simplify life for the experts also.
Cool, thank you.
And still the e-learning part, I'm quite curious also how the readiness will be also of the colleagues, but for huge user groups, for complex content, it's not an easy task to simplify or to structure this and to explain very sharp and clear what's going on. This is work. Not everybody has the time for that or wants to invest so much time in that. But when you have this once in place, it's of course also an asset. Yes, to have a good, reliable training content with good explanations. But this doesn't fall from the sky. It's really tough work. You know that also. Yes. And for this use case, see still an advantage also with an e-learning format. Yes.
Then we have another question. S/4HANA is process-driven, of course. How did this impact the creation of the training material? Is there any impact or?
Yes, of course. We had a quite intensive time of reviewing the current process structure also across Bosch. Yes. And this structure, what we have there is the guidance structure for the project setup, for testing, and of course also training. That's why I mentioned I want to profit from the definition of test cases to get more in a happy path mode. Also recordings done for step-by-step instructions. So process is the leading element also for us. And when we jump into a direct in the system, it's because we have an experienced user group. But when you onboard somebody new, first explain the process. Yes. Not let them directly show how to click in the system.
Okay. Then we have another kind of delicate question, and I swear it's not a TTS question, it's really from an external participant, but I think maybe it's clear. Have you considered to use SAP Enable Now for this solution? So do you want to?
Yes, it was also a part of a proof of concept, and
okay. Okay.
Yes, it was in the place, but of course we found yes, there was a conscious decision to proceed with TTS performance.
Okay, and then we have maybe a last, maybe more a common, a typical one. So what are the typical do's and don'ts within your project? So where are the maybe what for tips you or some best practice you have, maybe you can do in this short time, or what are the typical traps on the other hand you could do in this field?
Yes, the typical pitfalls are of course the delta, to over design the delta views, yes, and create delta because the value is limited after go live. And the other point is to wait with training until just before the go live. Yes, that's the risk what projects normally have to face, and to find good ways to integrate training activities or in the process of development. Yes, that's what I have shown before. Yes. And the other topic is, and that's also daily learning for me, how to do the change management, how to connect to the experts, how to explain them, how to respect that they have to change and that not everybody is happy about moving from his own design Excel sheet for documentation into a new environment with predefined elements. Yes, and I hope we can convince. So far, we had with representatives from the process teams have regular meetings to discuss training topics, not only about what I have explained here, also more, but we had previews about the environment and handling and version. And this was creation of content. This was quite promising. Yes, also to see how to get the feedback from the colleagues how we really can save time. Yes, and when we create a mode of continuous improvement also for the existing objects, then the newly created one, then we can, I guess, really, yes, how to say, find a new way of doing things.